So then we move, from monetary policy to economic indicators. What's actually happening in the real economy? Not what's the theory or what's the Fed doing and what's going to come. But we see the impacts here of a rolling recession. To your point, home sales are down 39% due to high mortgage rates trapping homeowners. There's existing home sales. This is the norm. You'll see 2008 was a killer for the norm because 2007, 2008 got crazy.
Right.
And it kind of returned back to norm in the times of ZIRP, zero interest rates, when we could buy and sell property with almost no cost in terms of the mortgage. I mean, a 1-2% rate for the mortgage or 2 or 3% rate for the mortgage. And then we had COVID, we had post-COVID, and now look at that.
Yeah. And we have not only the mortgage rates that are trapping people in their homes, you also have what they call die in place.
Yes.
Larry, you and I are both examples. This is my last place I'm going to live.
Yeah.
I've been living in this place now for 9 years. I intend to stay in this place until they carry me out.
We've been here for 14 years, and we've kind of made this place. I mean, we've added on and changed, and, we spent a lot of money on the place. But we're really thinking about going to a smaller place. This is a big house. It's not a giant house, but it's a big house for 2 people to rattle around in. The grandkids are growing up, so, this may be the last year or the second last year that they'll come and swim in our pool.
Yeah, right.
And the pool's lovely. I mean, it's a beautiful garden to sit out in the evening, have a glass of wine and all of that. But it may be we will move. We are thinking about it. So. But you're right. I mean, a lot of that is happening. And then, auto sales is very interesting because we've seen auto sales collapse, then, peak again from that collapse. By the way, this is what, is considered to be a good auto year, up in the 16 million range. 15 million is kind of below norms. So 15.5, is where it needs to be, but it doesn't often get there, and there's often drops to very, very small numbers. This is why the auto business is so difficult to be in, and so difficult to manage, and so difficult to make money out of. But we had a very big spike just now because of the impending tariffs. But you'll see that actually, absent that spike, we were down at the 15 million mark, which is not where the auto industry needs to be.
Now, once again, just a quick note, you'll notice that there's no growth. There's no growth in this chart. Okay, we've got the tops being around 16 to 18 million. There's no growth. There's been no growth in my lifetime in business, all the way going back to the 70s. There's no growth in the auto business, even though the population has dramatically grown. So there's obviously a couple of reasons for that. One of those has been over the years that the cars last so much longer. So where we would throw a car away before it was 100,000 miles, you got rid of it. Now you drive them 150, 160,000 miles. They last 20 years. People don't think anything at all about keeping a car for 15 to 20 years. So that has dramatically decreased the number of total cars. But now what we're seeing is the young people are not buying cars.
Yeah. Correct.
So that's now having an impact. So these are outside of the recession, but then you also have this recession impacting auto sales as well, which is her point, is that one of the 4 areas that is in a rolling recession.
Manufacturing. So there we are below the line on manufacturing. I mean, so this is a diffusion index. What it means is that below the line is the contraction. Above the line is growth. So once you're below the line, which we are now and have been for some time, with a small blip when the election happened, below 50 is contraction, which is the state since interest rates spiked in 2022. I think manufacturing is going to get a big fillip from from what's happening with the tariffs. I could be wrong, but that could be, an engine for future recovery.
And by the way, this is a PMI. So this is a Purchasing Managers Index. This is a survey. This is not measuring actual amounts of money that's going through the manufacturing system, but rather what purchasing managers are predicting is going to happen in their business. And we have seen this drop.
No, it's not on their business, it's in their capital spending.
Capital. Is this a capital spending one?
Yeah. Capital goods spending.
On their capital spending. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. It's not the capital spending. This is the capital spending. Capital goods orders, non-defense, aircraft and parts. And aircraft, because of Boeing's problems, they've plunged anyway.
Right. Now, I think this one is actual spending from the GDP. And this is where we saw the nice bump in the first quarter.
This is not spending. This is orders.
Oh.
New orders.
Orders. Okay. New orders. Okay.
So that revenue won't have hit the books yet.
Right.
And then small business optimism. Look how it peaked at the election.
Yes.
Look how it's dropped since the election.
Yes. And it's all about tariffs.
Yes.
Okay. Now I need to get on my hobby horse again, Larry.
Dude, get on your hobby horse.
I did something on that. I wish Cathy had read my X because I believe she would agree with me. Maybe you will, or maybe you won't. The tariff thing is 100% driven by the negative news. Because you have the folks, business owners, as well as the consumers, thinking that we might be going back to 6 or 7% inflation. There's no way to get there. There's no way to get there with these tariffs. I've asked Grok. I've looked at economists. I've read everything I can read on the subject. Nobody thinks it's going to be above 1.5% at the very most, the impact on pricing in this year due to tariffs. That'd be the worst case scenario, is 1.5, according to Grok. My number is 0.8. So this is driven by negative headlines of the press trying to scare the population about the Trump administration. And this is they would like nothing better than to see Trump fail. And we know we got 94% negative press on Trump so far. And I think that's what's driving. These are surveys about people's opinion about the future, not actual numbers.
Yeah, I actually don't entirely align with you on this. I think that a large number of small businesses will not be able to get their goods in time to maintain revenue. I think there will be a large number of them that are discombobulated by the failure to be able to buy. And, you talked about it's only 14% of our imports. That's not a way to look at it. It's not what percentage of your imports it is. It's the business that 14% enables, whether that's a component for a manufactured good or whether it's part of your offering, of your product offering. And so it's not just the resale of those 14%. It's the component that 14% represents in your business. And in any case, it's marginal to your business. If you have to lose 14% of your revenue, you're probably going to make a loss. If you're going to make a loss, you're going to have to, conserve cash. If you have to conserve cash, you have to start laying off. So there's a lot more to it than, just simply saying, well, it's only 14% of our goods that we import. So I think there's a lot more to it about optimism versus pessimism, but it's not at a terrible point yet. It's still, relatively, well, it's not really that high, but it was getting to the heights when the election took place. So we'll see.
Yeah, as Cathy said, it'll be interesting to see what they say this month.
Yes.
We'll see that in a couple of weeks.
Yes. So consumer sentiment across income levels collapsed. High-end consumer spending dropped in April. So there it is. I mean, you can say all you want about 14% of our tariffs, but when the consumer stops spending, the pain goes from the top to the bottom, or from the bottom to the top in the economy. And so this is probably pretty darn serious. This is the top third, the bottom third, and the middle third. So, Cathy's thesis that we're at the point of recovery in this rolling recession may or may not be right. My thesis that we're in a recession, not a rolling recession, but an actual recession, and we're going to have 2 quarters of negative growth, I think is the more probable.
Okay, just one caveat, and that is consumer spending at the end of April. We're talking about, I think, through the 26th of April was the last report I saw from MasterCard saying we're still at 6 to 7% increase compared to last year in terms of consumer spending. So
Time will tell.
Yep,
Time will tell.
Yep.
Time will tell. So here's consumer expectations and yield curve. So let's look at yield curve, 10-year Treasury yield minus 2-year, and look where we're going. We're going up. So this is a so-called recession predictor. Now, Cathy raises doubt about the recession predictor. She says that in the period of great invention, 1880s to 1920, 1930 really, we had, the yield curve was negative all that period of time. So this notion that the yield curve then produces a recession may be upside down. Maybe we're going to see a long-term negative yield curve. And I can buy that, by the way. Mm-hmm. Not that we didn't have terrible recessions during that period. We had really, major recessions during that period. But anyway, let's move on.